fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, see. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Hey there, hi there, ho there, how you doing? I'm not on the microphone, so it might be hard to hear me. I'm drinking tea. Deal with it. My teeth hurt. I've had teeth pain, terrible teeth pain. I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Care Bear stare out to everybody. I'm a little behind this week on getting out my shows because I've been doing the live streams this week, and it's just like added a whole bunch more little things to my life that have been aggravating me because of my stupid teeth. So sorry about that, but I'm going to get all of those episodes out really soon. And I'm excited to talk today about like what I want to talk about. As I've been saying, I wanted to get away from just like being a part of the mob, nitpicking all of the stupid decisions that Hollywood has made. I think that we can all agree they've made a lot of stupid decisions, and the patterning in what they're doing has become very obvious. And when patterns are really obvious in the things that you're making, it just ruins the things that you're making. And it's gotten difficult in this landscape to find great things, greatness, and I think more than ever, it behooves us to passionately follow the creators that we love and really, get their backs. All of my best enjoyment as like a creative person and a person who loves movies and loves books and video games, whatever else, has all been from following creatives that I like, people that are clearly getting it and doing something right, and you will see that they do it right over and over and over again. And hey everybody, thank you so much for the people who've come down to the live stream. I will hang out after like the regular show is over to like say hello and everything after I wrap up like the main show that'll be the podcast or whatever, but just because like I don't want to bog it down for people who are listening on the podcast, because that's what we've been doing now for 102 episodes. And let me put my volume off too so that doesn't get in the way. Anyway, the being a loyal reader and a loyal watcher, somebody who recognizes that a talented person is not like a once in a lifetime kind of thing. They could probably do it again. I thought for you guys, and I don't know, I had somebody say to me recently that like I should expound on some of the concepts that I will talk about in a heartbeat at greater length. And this is kind of what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to beat a little bit of a dead horse, but just so that you can see what can come of following the people that you already love. It could be a bit of a hassle, giving all these new things a chance, whatever else. And the Hollywood system is constantly promoting you things, very aggressively, telling you that things are going to be great. And so often those things are very disappointing. But if you can hone in on the creative people that you really like and just follow them around, you win. My father's a great case in point. Like, nothing ever came of the bands that he had after Twisted Sister, but people who were savvy to how cool the music was, like my friend Dave Marfield, his email address was The Iron Road, which was one of my favorite songs off of Widowmaker's second album, Stand By for Pain, which is so good. But unfortunately, it wasn't promoted by the system. The system didn't lift it up, and there wasn't really any fanfare or anything, even though the people who know that material love that material. It was a great band. Everything about it was really positive. And it showed me very early on what can fall through the cracks. And like the biggest bands, like, they put out an album, but the label doesn't support it. And nobody ever knows it happens unless you're following along. And you can always guarantee yourself a pretty steady stream of great shit if you're able to become savvy to like really what you like and follow the creators to the ends of the earth. The first one for me, of course, is Jim Henson and the Muppets. I love the Muppets. And I think very quickly well, that's also Sesame Street and Fraggle Rock, and has he done anything else? And of course he had. And my mom would always be looking for like VHSs for me when I was young for that stuff. And then when I became like a teenager and I was more of a geek about this stuff, I had a dude named Kermie Clown something or other, who I would correspond with on email, and I would send him like enough money for postage and stuff, and he would send me burns of old Jim Henson material, and I got to watch that stuff. And the coolest thing about following somebody's career is just you learn so much more from it. You learn so much more about yourself and what you like, and you can encapsulate what it is that feels magical to you about something that Jim Henson's worked on, and everybody else as time went on. So Jim Henson was an early one for me, but there was so many more thereafter. I told you my teeth are a little bit a problem for me right now, so occasionally I'm going to just take a quick sip of something so that I can calm them down. They're like overly stimulated. I'm working on getting it taken care of, but it's bad timing for me. Putting a lot into my business, and it's like bad timing on lots of levels. But whatever, I'm working on it. So, some of the next ones for me were comedy. My father got me so many like great comedic people. Mel Brooks, and I wanted to watch every Mel Brooks movie ever made. Monty Python, and I wanted to see every Monty Python movie ever made. It even eventually got me into a great show called Fawlty Towers, because I was the biggest fan of John Cleese in Monty Python, and he's a brilliant writer, and the Fawlty Towers is amazing. If you've never seen Fawlty Towers, homework for tonight, go enjoy Fawlty Towers. Great stuff. Watch the episode of The Germans. That's like the best one. But I mean, like, they're all great. And it's one of my favorite shows of all time, and I never would have engaged with it unless I went deeper and I went, what else have these guys done? There's also a movie called The Fish Called Wanda and Fierce Creatures that is written by Michael Palin, I believe. Kevin Kline's in it, and that was because I was interested in Michael Palin. I really liked him as well. Just in standouts for me of like the Pythons. I was wondering if they did more. And that's the thing. When you see something that you really like, wonder, did they do more? Because this industry, it desperately doesn't want to lift anybody up. It really doesn't. Like, it happens by accident to some people. And the industry is always sort of like begrudgingly like, oh, well, people really do seem to like him, so I guess we'll pretend like he has power. Because everything is run like the creative people have absolutely no power, no say, no anything. So it behooves you, if you don't want to be at the mercy of whether or not the system decides that somebody's good at a moment, and the system has no taste. The system is just doing things based on a number of arbitrary concerns that they may have at any given time. And, you don't want to be beholden to the system. So the best thing for you to do is notice it when you really like something. And I noticed Monty Python. I noticed Mel Brooks. I'm trying to think some of the other ones that, I noticed. I mean, because I went into stand-up, years later. So Three Amigos was a movie that, I really loved. And that got me into Steve Martin's stand-up, which was really great. It's just a very unique stand-up experience and really awesome. And, and then getting into stand-up and just trying to get into a person here, a person there, got me into various movies. Oh, let me see, like they were in some movies at a time or whatever. And, there was so much, so comedy was the beginning for me of just like trying to follow the people that I really like, and nowadays it's, Trey Parker and Matt Stone and, the guys who produced Rick and Morty. And, I see greatness within, what they're doing. The producer of SpongeBob, there's lots of wonderful, brilliant, creative people who you can keep an eye on, because they do end up doing more things than just that one thing that might be highly promoted and, sought after by the mainstream. And, really that's what being a geek is. And a lot of people get like stuck in one area or whatever because they're like afraid to explore certain things. but it's just so easy to go look up somebody's, Wikipedia and IMDb page, and then there's a comic Vine that has every comic book that they've ever written and whatnot. And that's one of the next ones for me, comic books. Or actually, before comic books, I'll talk real quick because I talked about this on the William Goldman show. But William Goldman was a writer who The Princess Bride was my favorite movie of all time. And then I read the book. And the book was fucking awesome. And the book was so great. I liked it so much better than the movie that I was like, I want to read this guy's other books. And I went out and I bought, it wasn't easy at that time. There's no Amazon or whatever. I'm 41, so, it was when I was younger. And I had to go out to a whole bunch of different libraries over time. And I slowly accumulated a bunch of books of William Goldman. And that was the beginning of me reading. I found a writer, because I really didn't like most of the writers. I like Shakespeare. I got into Shakespeare pretty good. I think people just got hung up sometimes on not understanding things. And if you just kind of move ahead, you can eventually kind of figure out everything that's going on. And there's a lot of really cool things going on in Shakespeare. The lyricality of it and rhythm of it and the language. And I like Shakespeare. So I know some people struggle with that one, but Shakespeare was an early one for me. But I didn't really generally like a lot of the books that were assigned in school. I just thought they were boring as hell. I just really couldn't stand it. Shakespeare was the only thing that I kind of dug. I like Beowulf a lot. When he fights Grendel, it's a good one. I remember I liked. Of Mice and Men's okay. There's some that are okay, but I just didn't care. They were just so boring to me. Comic books were really my salvation. But William Goldman was the first writer who wrote novels that I could really read. I did read The Hobbit earlier on, and then I tried to read Lord of the Rings. But I've been reading Lord of the Rings now. Just started a few months ago, as I've been talking about. So William Goldman, though, as it turned out, was this incredible writer who had won Oscars for writing. Won an Oscar for All the President's Men, which was a best adaptation from another novel. Great movie. Robert Redford, Dustin Hoffman, awesome one. And had also won an Oscar for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is another awesome movie and a great adaptation of real life, even though it's best original screenplay. And he took plenty of liberties or whatever, but he read about these guys and he just found them very compelling. And he made a movie about Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and won an Oscar. And it's awesome. The only thing in the movie that is a bit weird is there's this Burt Bacharach music interlude halfway through the movie that comes along and you're going to be like, what the fuck is going on right now? But other than that, the movie's quite cool. It still holds up and is very awesome. And he was responsible for a ton of great movies. Marathon Man, I talk about it on the show. There's a William Goldman show where I get into all the movies of his that are out. There's tons. Great horror movies and thrillers, and The Princess Bride, kind of stands alone as its own separate thing. But he's an amazing writer who's not up his own ass, which a lot of writing I just can't get behind because I just feel like the narrator, the person putting the pen to paper is a dick. I'm just like, this guy's a dick, and he's talking down to me, and fuck him. Stephen King is somebody who doesn't talk down to his readers. There's plenty who don't. Mark Twain's another person who doesn't talk down to his readers. There's plenty of good things that I've been able to read now over the years. But in general, the stuff that was assigned to me in school, I always felt was just the pits. Just the pits of hell on except Shakespeare. I like Shakespeare. Everything else fucking sucked for the most part. But William Goldman was amazing. And literally I just went, I love this one book. What else has he written? And there are other people I've done that with as well. Oh, and that taught me how to be a better writer too, because he had written a lot of books on writing that were great. Screenplay books and different things on just the business of being in the entertainment business. He made me not want to be in the entertainment business, which is why I picked comics. Well, probably one of the reasons. I was like, screw this entertainment business. It sounds like it's the pits. I don't want to do any of this shit. But William Goldman's amazing. I highly recommend him for people who want to read. And also Barry, what's his name? Barry something. Oh, I'm blanking out. He wrote David Barry. He's a humorist, they call him. He's written tons of articles for I don't remember what publication, but he did a book called Big Trouble that they made a movie of that was not even close to as good as the book. The book is fucking hysterical. I've read it twice because it's just I've never read a book that was so damn humorous. The whole thing, just scenario after scenario after scenario in this book is just like freaking amazing. Very kind of Guy Ritchie-like or whatever. But I won't get into movies yet. Guy Ritchie and Elmore Leonard like fused together. Very, very good. The David Barry stuff. I was very impressed. I need to look him up and see if he's written anything recently, because I'd love to read it. He was great. He hadn't really read it. It was his first book of fiction, actually. I think he was working on a second one that I started reading and I didn't like as much. So talking about comic books, for me, like to get into comic books, really, I read exclusively The Savage Dragon for a very long time. Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. And occasionally Eric has done other work, and I have always followed and checked out different things he's done. And some of these things have been wonderful. Some of them not so much. You know, sometimes these things happen, but the thing when you're following an artist that you like is you like them. You know, so like you'll end up sort of enjoying or getting something out of following an artist, even when they're a little less consistent than you'd like them to be. Later, I was working at 7-Eleven, and I had heard that Deadpool was very funny. And I started reading it in the bathroom and putting it back. Sorry. I wasn't really going anyway. I was just, sitting there reading a comic book for my little break. But I really enjoyed Joe Kelly's Deadpool. Joe Kelly was the writer. I followed Joe Kelly as a writer thereafter. One of the main reasons why I decided to get this package that got me into comics was because it was 2 issues of the X-Men. One of them was written by Joe Kelly and the other by Steve Siegel, who I'd never heard of, but whatever. And then there was these 4 books of the Marvel Knights, and it was Daredevil, and it was the Punisher, and it was the Inhumans, and it was Black Panther. And I really liked all those characters. I liked Daredevil a lot. My dad was a big Daredevil fan, and I liked what I'd heard about him. And I really liked Black Panther a lot. Really liked what I'd understood about him. It was a king. I just thought it was interesting. I really liked. I always felt like the Black Panther was one of the most like regal animals, and I thought it was just like a really good archetype for a black man. So I really was interested in that one. And the Inhumans, because Black Bolt, he couldn't open his mouth without destroying things. And, that was awesome. And the Punisher was always a fun one. So I got all these things. I didn't know the creators on Daredevil, but I did know Kevin Smith. I had, because I liked watching movies. And I had gotten into Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith's got his whole little universe of movies and has gone on to do more things that are very interesting and cool and worth your time. I've been impressed by the other things that Kevin's made. People really haven't given him the time of day on a lot of these other creations of his, but I think they're great and worth people's time. He's really brilliant. And you'd know that if you were following him a little bit. I understand that he's been a little bit like running his mouth in the mainstream, but the interesting indie movies that he's done, like for himself, like he's remained relevant. He's a cool creative person. So I was like Daredevil, Kevin Smith, and the art on Daredevil, like the covers looked really nice, but I didn't know like Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti or any of these names. I didn't know who Paul Jenkins was. I didn't know who any of these creators were. Christopher Priest. Now, I know who those creators were, and I would follow those guys' work. Christopher Priest is great, consistent. You go read 99% of Christopher Priest's work. I think you'll probably be pretty happy that you read it. He's really great. He was the only person who did a good job on Deadpool after Joe Kelly left the book. Everybody else who came in to the book fumbled the ball. Even creative people that I generally like Gail Simone. Sorry, Gail, I like you, but sorry. You didn't get the character really. You didn't give the fans of the character what they wanted. It was very weird, the one you did. I mean, Christopher Priest kind of threw everybody off because the very first thing he did in his run was he threw out all of Joe Kelly's ideas, and he just kind of did what he wanted to do. And he is funny and brilliant enough that he can just do whatever he wants to do, and he's great. But the other creators who came afterwards, Jimmy Palmiotti, who I like a lot, I love him as a person. Creatively, sometimes I really like him. Sometimes I don't find him to be the best. But does good work often enough that I was surprised. I was hopeful that he would be good for Deadpool. I mean, really, and like it was just like one after another. Frank Thierry came in, like just people they were not able to capture about Deadpool what made Deadpool great. Um, and Gail Simone has written plenty of characters that I cared about, as an example. I'm just saying, uh, really people struggled, but Joe Kelly, and it's just, and this is why I sometimes read some of these other creators, and I always read Joe Kelly. And I got to follow Joe Kelly onto Superman after my friend Greg Aberback, shout out to Greg Aberback, got me into Batman. And I really loved Batman. And then I started reading the Justice League because Batman was on the Justice League. And then there was all these other characters on the Justice League, and I was really appreciating them from some of the great Justice League stories I read. And then I was able to go over there. When I read JLA, which was by Grant Morrison, oh my goodness, Grant Morrison is an incredible writer. I was like, I will read everything Grant Morrison writes. If you read everything Grant Morrison writes, you're a lucky one. If you read everything Jeff Johns writes, for the most part, you're a lucky one. He did. I'll just warn you away from maybe two things. A lot of people don't necessarily love some of his the Superman run that he did when it was monthly. I remember that being a little weak. But at least the beginning of his New 52 Justice League was fucking awful. Don't read that. But Green Lantern, Rebirth, and everything that came after that, even like all the ancillary titles and associated titles. Oh my God, he did something amazing with Green Lantern. The Flash, his Wally West Flash that started before they noticed he was great. His Avengers run at Marvel was amazing. Recent things that he's done like Doomsday Clock and Three Jokers, amazing. He did some Hawkman and Justice Society of America. Jeff Johns is fucking awesome. Right now, he's got a company called Ghost Machine. I've been trying to promote it as a fan of his, as somebody who has seen him consistently make awesome shit. Let me hold these up real quick. This is like the preview book that has like bits of like all their stuff. The art is great, not just the covers. These cover artists are the artists. Geiger, I've already been reading. The first 6 issues of this was great. This is like a new relaunch with the company. But Geiger's super cool. Radioactive, bad guy. Redcoat, I haven't been able to read these yet, but they look amazing. Brian Hitch is the artist on here. Brian Hitch is a great artist. I don't necessarily follow artists when it comes to comic books because they don't always have great stories. There are some artists who I will always follow, like Jason Fabuk. I think he's earned it for me with the Three Jokers. The artwork in Batman Three Jokers was so insane. It's I saw somebody saying in the comics, that like the world of superhero comics, has not been what it once was, and it's true. It has not been, but in the Merc, there are great things that come out. That last Ronin Ninja Turtles thing that came out was really cool. There are great independent works that come out. And really, you only find out about these things by noticing when you read a short story in an anthology that, Jesse Blaze Snider was really good. Maybe I should follow some of his work. And, there are, lovely people who have noticed something, relatively small. Because a lot of people will only get one opportunity. I only did 2 things at Marvel. And like there's only so many people who noticed. And there's lots of great creative people where really, if you notice their work, you just got to like follow it because they did make more movies and those movies were good. Just because it didn't get promoted doesn't mean it's not fabulous. There's so many great creators in comics that I have followed, because their work is incredible. And I'll list a bunch of them off in a second just to guide you a little bit if you are interested in reading some great comic books because these creators bring it every time. And that's why I always will read them. Warren Ellis is a fabulous writer, really thinks outside the box. There's a book by him that I really love called Fell. Another book by him that I quite enjoy called Planetary. If you're kind of a negative person and you feel like you have a lot of negativity to blow off, he's got a great book called Transmetropolitan. Great stuff. I know all these things and I know more because I read everything that Warren Ellis puts out because I'm interested in him as a creative person. Let's see. Some other people. I love Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker had a great run of Captain America. Everything that you loved about the Winter Soldier film is thanks to Ed Brubaker and what he did. That character was considered dead. There'd be no cool way to bring him back. He was lame and he would always be lame. And he changed all that. with his story, and that storyline from those books are amazing. He does a book called Criminal that's fucking awesome. I love Criminal. Especially love Criminal because of all the articles in the back, which I barely ever read these articles because I'm not that into the noir thing as he is. But I'm into his book, and I'm into his writing, and I'm into any presentation of the noir that he wants to show me because I think that he is brilliant, and I appreciate how much he appreciates this whole genre, this genre of entertainment. He is really an incredible creative person that is taking a genre that I kind of tend to find stilted and boring sometimes, that kind of noir thing or whatever. But he loves it, and his version of it I love, and I follow that all the time. And Greg Rucka is a buddy of his, and they're both into that kind of stuff, and I follow lots of Greg Rucka's stuff. I'm forgetting the name of the damn book. There's like an agent, and she's an individual. I forget. Whiteout, maybe the book was called. Book I really liked that was independent by him. Him and Ed Brubaker worked on a book at DC called Gotham Central that was a favorite of mine. So good, with Renee Matoya and Officer Hardback and Bullock and it was really, really good. Highly recommend going back to find issues of Gotham Central. Anyway, there are plenty of other creative people. There are some artists that I will follow, like Art Adams and Dale Keown and Jeff Darrow. And some of these artists are actually writers themselves, like Steve Scroce and Jeff Darrow. I really like their writing as well. I think that they do a great job. Eric Larson isn't as great as he once was, but he was really incredible. There's a ton of great stuff to read from Eric, and there's a lot to like about the things that he does to this day. But Robert Kirkman's another one that's a great, a lot of people have gotten into Robert Kirkman and already knew about Invincible. And he's done some other books that are really good. He's done some stuff at Marvel that was really fun. Generally, I've enjoyed 99% of everything that I have read from Kirkman, and I will give him a shot when he wants my attention. And I mean, this is the thing, you go, that was great. I wonder if they've done any more. And you go and you look and you find more. If you look into Robert Kirkman, you could deeper, you'd find Battle Pope, which is very fun. And there's other things. There was another one that I remember that I liked from him. I'm not remembering it right now off the top of my head. But I mean, I've read all these things. It's just like, dude, I've read so much. It's like, really, like when you really have read a lot, it's hard to remember. Like, it's hard to remember all the books because, like, the really good ones are the ones that like fly to the top, and it's kind of better that way anyway. I mean, it's like, the best ones are the best ones. But I can say that even the things that I don't remember for any of these artists, that I'm mentioning, or aren't coming to the top of my head immediately, they were good. I've enjoyed following these artists. That's why I'm mentioning their names. So then, going into the film world and TV world, because that stuff kind of overlaps a little bit in a lot of different ways. There's so many wonderful creators. When I saw Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, that movie's incredible. I've been following Guy Ritchie ever since. When I saw Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, as many people have been following Quentin Tarantino ever since. But also when I saw Desperado, I've been following Robert Rodriguez ever since. When I saw True Romance, which I saw because it was a Quentin Tarantino written movie, I followed Tony Scott everywhere. I'd realized that I've watched so many of his movies, and his movies are so beautiful. And Tony Scott's dead now. Or Ridley Scott. I've watched most of every Ridley Scott movie that has ever been made. The director's cut of fucking Kingdom of Heaven with Orlando Bloom, it's incredible. Highly recommend that movie. So good. I really loved and still love, there's a lot of actors that I'll follow, like Mel Gibson, who's gone on to be an amazing director. I really like Mel as an actor. Like, I always felt like a personal connection with him, like similar to how I feel with Robert Downey Jr. And I'll watch, any Robert Downey Jr. movie I'll watch.
And for me as a writer, I feel like everything, there's always something to learn from it. And if I have like any reason to like the thing, it makes it so easy for me to just get into it. So I mean, like, getting into the work of Paul Newman has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Some of my favorite movies, like Slapshot, which is one of my favorite sports movies. If you're a hockey fan at all, or just like sports films, oh my God, Slapshot is hysterical. Paul Newman's the best. Cool Hand Luke. Great movie about living on a chain gang. That's where that line, "What we have here is failure to communicate." That's from not Coolest Geek, Cool Hand Luke. Me wanting to be the coolest geek alive, the Cool Hand Luke. That's like part of it. Really, like that movie. Love that movie. And so many great Paul Newman movies. He's a great guy. Like the Newman's Own Dressing that a lot of people know him from. He became a race car driver later in his life, and also started a charitable foundation, this Newman's Own like salad dressing thing that lives on to this day and like makes lots of money for charity every year. The dude was my heart, man. I fucking love Paul Newman. And Mel Gibson has gone on to direct some incredible movies. Oh my God. I mean, like, I'll watch him in anything because I really like his performances, and like I said, I like him in the movies. But the things that he's written and worked on, with the exception of, and I got to talk to him one day, like, because Passion of the Christ is just way too much for me. I love Jesus, but like, I hate this thing of like, we need to show Jesus being mauled and hurt so badly. And like, I mean, literally my ex-wife was my like girlfriend at the time. She just sobbed under my arm for the whole movie. Like, and I was just crying, like, why do I have to watch this? Why can't we talk about how you should turn the other cheek? like it was like fucked up, man. I really like could not get behind that movie. But Apocalypto is incredible. Braveheart is incredible. I really have to like rearrange my movies because I think this movie is one of the greatest movies of all time for me, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the title right. It's something Ridge, Heartbreak Ridge, or something like that. It was with the second Spider-Man, and oh my goodness, he's the conscientious objector, and he saves all these guys, and he's saving the other side, and they're killing them when he brings them back, and oh my God, it's like the most moving movie I've ever seen in my life. I mean, Braveheart's my third favorite movie of all time. I love Braveheart. I think is like, I've just never seen a more powerful movie. I kind of feel like I gotta move the Princess Bride out of the way, even though I fucking love the Princess Bride. But like, oh my God, it's just like so meaningful, so like, it's so good. In case you're wondering, like my like top 5 favorite movies: Princess Bride, Tombstone, Braveheart, Iron Man, and probably Rocky, like the Rocky franchise. I love the Rocky movies. Not Rocky 5 or the shit that came after that. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love those movies. Rocky Balboa is okay. So, following directors and writers, there's a brilliant guy. I just, because of the internet, you don't necessarily have to remember everybody's name all the time. It's something McDonough. He wrote the movie In Bruges. In Bruges is fucking brilliant. In Bruges is brilliant. And he's written a lot of other interesting movies as well. I think he recently wrote that thing with like the guy where his friend, he's like, I don't want to be your friend anymore, and he like cuts off his fingers and he throws them at the door. It was a crazy movie. My girlfriend didn't really enjoy it, and I can't say that I loved it, even though there was like things to talk about leaving the movie. And but I enjoy being a part of this creative person's journey, and it's interesting. Having seen his other movies and enjoyed some stuff. There's somebody that I got into very quickly, Sam Rockwell, when I saw Galaxy Quest. He stole the show in Galaxy Quest. If you've never seen Galaxy Quest, it's a great movie. Fabulous parody of basically Star Trek. It's delightful. One of my faves. Like top 100 movies of all time kind of thing. and he steals the show in that movie, Sam Rockwell, and it just made me want to see him in everything. And so, like, like that's somebody who, like, all of a sudden I started digging for his movies. Anton Yelkov or something like that. He's the guy who plays Chekhov in the Star Trek franchise. I love that guy. He did a movie. Robert Downey Jr.'s in it. He plays like the principal of his school. I forget what the movie's called. If you go look into his like IMDb, you'll find it. It was great. It was like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off kind of thing. He was helping all these kids and, like, just kind of being himself and being rewarded for being himself. It was wonderful. Like, one of the most charming movies you'll ever see, and maybe just want to see every movie that he ever did, especially after he died. I was like, oh man, I still haven't seen all the movies that he's done, but he's great. There's a ton of people that are really awesome, and it bothers me that I can't like retain every single name as I'm like jumping from one category to another. But it's a lot of freaking names. So let's see, because there's so many other places where we can do this. Now, Jim Henson and his Creature Shop, by following the Creature Shop that was providing creature effects for all of these movies, I got to learn about a ton of movies that had great creature effects, and I love creature effects. So what did I do? I was following a creature effects shop. You follow Ray Winston and people who like do creature effects, you'll find out about little independent movies that are using great creature effects. If you find out, it's the same thing with like bands. Like when you find a band, usually I do, like, if I've heard 3 songs from them that I really like, I'll go and I'll dig deeper. But I also let the internet bring me music, when I've like plugged in some things that I like and let them recommend stuff and find other bands. But like I'll get into it. There's a band that I just did an episode of All Your Favorite Bands Suck On, which I do that show every Monday night at 8 now on the live stream, 8, 11, over the 2 time zones. I just covered Rise Against last week. And why was I talking about that? Oh fuck. My damn teeth are making it hard for me to like have continuity with my thoughts sometimes. They're just distracting me because they're a bit uncomfortable. Forgive me. I'm just going to get myself back on my thought track. I was talking about Jim Henson, and I was talking about following creature effects, and different things like that. So I don't know what I told you about. Oh, with like different bands, like just you can go so deep. Like, a band that is consistent will make consistent music, and if you like their vibes, they usually have a lot more to say. And it's like the way the record labels present these bands does them a great disservice. Nickelback's feeling that right now. Nickelback is an awesome band that is really like badass and cool and really make a lot of diverse type of music, and they are a worthy band to be out there making money. And like my father had apparently met Chad Kroeger recently, and he was like sort of like making excuses for himself a little bit. And when I heard that, I was like, what? Like, gotta defend this man's honor. They are great. And like really, like there's like this silly thing of like they're this one hit kind of one note band, and it's not true. The internet has like eaten them alive with a thing or two, but there's really no basis for it. It's just like a very myopic look at what they're doing. And deeper into their catalog and deeper into their albums, there's so much great stuff. If you like a few AC/DC songs, go listen more. There's so much great stuff. If you like Ace of Spades by Motorhead, go dig into their catalog. There's so much great stuff. There's a reason why these bands are considered, whatever. And I think a lot of people have a very superficial understanding of most of them. And, that's why I do the All Your Favorite Bands Suck show. You can check out the podcast. I've done like 20-something episodes now just featuring all these different bands that I really like, helping you to get into them more. And that's really what I'm trying to help you guys do today, get into some of these things a little bit more deeply. My love of Walt Disney, and the Walt Disney Animation made me appreciate who that man was and what he was doing. My love of the Warner Brothers cartoons made me, dig into that assembly line of how they were making such great entertainment and all the great creative people who were involved there. And, Mel Blanc, who was doing all the voices, and, just so many different people who were producing all of these cartoons. I remember there was a Warner Brothers store that used to be dedicated to honoring them in a really nice way. I love that. was really cool because there's a lot of people we have to thank for the greatness of not fucking Space Jam and stuff, but the old school Warner Brothers cartoons, which are awesome. You know, they're great things to find, and you can find other things that Chuck Jones and Mel Blanc have worked on, and dig into other things in the world. Pixar has been an easy one for people, and John Lasseter. You know, John Lasseter was the head of Pixar. He got a little bit of extra steam on him by his association with Steve Jobs, who's another person who I was following anything Steve Jobs was doing. A lot of people are following anything Elon Musk does. You know, and that's a good strategy. Find somebody that you key up with and you're like, this works for me, and follow them. You know, and I mean, you don't follow them like they're God or anything, but just, you know, be on their butt. One, they really need it and they will appreciate it. Every creative person is being dicked around by the system, and like they don't get any power until there's so much noise behind them of how much you love them, how much people love them, that they get more creative power to make better things. You know, so, you know, supporting the creative people that we really like, the Peter Jacksons of the world and the Guillermo del Toros, you know, and Guillermo del Toro, you know, when I saw Blade 2, I was like, oh my God, that movie was so good. It was so beautiful. I loved how it was shot. So many things. And I started watching all the other Guillermo del Toro movies. And a lot of people haven't seen some of the great Guillermo del Toro movies. They're like, you know, smaller, mid-budget, you know, horror movies and in Spanish, but they're great. And, you know, I love Guillermo. And like I said, even when creators aren't so great, like Tim Burton, who I really think is very miss, you know, he's like, you know, he occasionally hits, I think he kind of hit more back in the day, and occasionally he'll hit, you know, on a level or two, but his things are always interesting in his way, and it's sort of fun to follow him and see what he's doing now. Okay, this is interesting. I like this, you know, and I kind of say it because it's like, it's really the journey that I'm suggesting that you go on with all creators of every variety, you know, really trying to follow along with what they're doing. You know, and for me, it's like, oh my God, there's just so many people who I follow. You know, like the Dave Simon, the creator of The Wire. I'll watch anything he makes. You know, The Wire has proved to me that he's just like one of the most brilliant people ever. You know, the guy who produced The Shield and went on to produce Sons of Anarchy. You know, generally, I'll watch anything he does. You know, I think he's very, very, very brilliant creative person. If I hear John Cleese wrote something new, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll check that out. John Cleese did it. All right. Any of these comic book people. And it's really cool because I can come into comics when comics suck right now, and I can just pick a couple things that I haven't had a chance to read because a few of my favorite creators have put out some stuff. You know, Grant Morrison hasn't been not writing anything, I'm sure. Jeff Johns, I've read some of Jeff Johns' stuff during like my time where I haven't been reading as many comics. And, you know, the comics that I have read have been really exceptional because I know who to follow. I know who to read. And it can be very easy for you to do that too. You really just got to like notice and be grateful and try to follow that artist and be encouraging. And it's never been easier to really follow people's careers. And like I said, there's a comic book website called Comic Vine that generally has like everybody's credits. And then there's the movie website IMDb, which will give you everybody's movie credits and TV credits. I mean, and then I'm sure there's the same thing for books somewhere as well. So I really think that the importance for great creators to be supported has never been greater. You know, I was showing you the Ghost Machine books from Jeff Johns' new company. There's a real change going on in the entertainment industry, and I really think a lot of the power is shifting back to the creative people. And if you want the brilliant people who make the great art to rise to the surface, you got to support them. You know, just creatively, you know, go out and get those Ghost Machine books if you're into Jeff Johns, or if you just want to take my recommendation for it. He's so great. Go out and see the Guy Ritchie movie that he made, you know, which I'm trying to see. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. But because you want to send a message to the studio that you want them to keep giving him money and keep making movies. I love The Gentleman. I hear this Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is not quite as good, but like I like him. I really like following his career, and I've enjoyed so many of the movies that he's made, and I'm really glad he's around making things. And that's kind of like you've got to vote with your dollar. And when you don't support these people, there's a guy named Joe Cornish who made a movie called Attack the Block. I love that movie. I try to support any Joe Cornish movie. There's tons of directors and artists where I'm like, oh, that's the guy who did that? Yes, absolutely. And I pay attention to that. Who, even if I don't necessarily know somebody by name or anything, where I'm just like, ooh, I like that. That's the guy who he did that. I will go check that out. And I try to find out, what's coming out and whatever else when I can. But in this day and age, it's very easy for indie films, indie documentaries, indie anything to fly right under your nose. So, really, I beg you all to start paying more attention and being a part of the system. Be a consumer with real, genuinely good taste, because it's so great for you to actively key in on what you like, so that you can articulate it, so that the things can be better, so that there's more people in the world saying, I like this and I like it for these reasons and whatever else. And a lot of that tends to come from, I saw a few of their movies. And between these movies, I read a few of their comics, and between these comics, I went, oh, you know what? I see the through line. I see what I really love about them. I see what's turning me on about this creative person. And especially if you want to be a creative person yourself, or if you just consider yourself like a study of the creative arts, it behooves you to just really honor all of the great creative people that you find. Because one, you don't learn as much when you're just kind of a little slapdash of things coming to you. And when you do the things coming to you thing, you basically give all of your power to the system. And the system is now responsible for schooling you on entertainment. And I'm telling you, this is true. Every single artist that you know, from the Foo Fighters and Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift right now, because you've seen them in the press a lot, I promise you, money put them there. A strategic effort put them there. And it just never happens otherwise. Everything else is sort of like minor league players. You have to get made. It's a whole freaking stupid system. And I know, because I've been inside it for a very long time. But it's not the sort of apparatus that you imagine. And that is really, truly why when somebody shows up on your radar that you think is great, don't let them slip away. Write down their name. Go dig into them on Spotify. Go dig into them on YouTube. Try to get more of an idea about who this artist is. They probably have some incredible things that you're going to want to see. Mostly with all of these creative people that I've followed, Greg Rucka and Jeff Johns, I'm like 99%, 90 to 99% of everything that I've ever read from them or dealt with from them was great. I was just like, I'm so glad that I read this. I'm so glad to be able to share it with my brother Shane. I gave him piles of all my favorite comics, tons of Greg Rucka stuff and Ed Brubaker stuff and Grant Morrison stuff and Jeff Johns stuff. I gave him all the best stuff, man. And a lot of it was from following some of these creators. So, he would see names over and over again. It wasn't like he would see a name once and then not, because I didn't, if the creators weren't good, I wasn't sharing it. And that's really the thing with you. If the book's not good, you're not reading it. It's going to be slow. Getting through reading things and doing all this stuff, it is very difficult. It's funny. I see in the comments, Lyle was saying that he loves my music, which I so appreciate. But it's not on Apple Music anymore. Actually, if you type in Jesse Blaze, you can find a lot of my stuff now. There's a Jesse Blaze Snider that is an old link that I don't have access to, and Jesse Blaze I do have access to, and I've put out a lot of stuff through Jesse Blaze, including the old Baptized by Fire stuff and a whole bunch of different things. Anyway, I love you guys. I love artists, and it's so funny because that's ultimately what I've realized all my shows are about, to some degree. Granted, my Friday show is going to be a little different. I'm doing this really interesting kind of spiritual, esoteric knowledge, quantum physics, otherworldly, next level, the stuff the Freemasons are teaching each other, I'm going to teach you. And I'm really excited about that. But my other shows are just me gushing about things that I love. And that's really like, I love this stuff. And I just want to share it with more people, help more people get into this stuff. I had a little company that I had made for a little while called I Don't Know Shit About Comics. And it was like a free information booth at comics. And I'm actually going to bring it back with my publishing company, Blacklight District Studios, to conventions. We're going to like give out pamphlets. Like, here, if you want to read Batman, start with these books. If you want to read Spider-Man, start with these books. You know, just like recommendations and like cool stuff to help people get into the hobby. Because for a lot of people, it's a bit like hard to get into. But if you take this approach of, you know, I got my eyes out for the people who are great. And once I see them, once I get the ones and I'm like, ooh, this one, I write down their name or remember their name or whatever else, and I keep coming back to the well to see what they have to offer next. Or I go back, you know, if I get that great band, I go back and I see what was their last album like. Oh yeah, did they have anything before that? Awesome. Whatever. All right, coolest geeks. I love you. Really appreciate you coming out to this. Was my second live stream of the Coolest Geek Alive. Very cool. I'm excited to do Sunday again for the second time with Aaron Sparrow for episode 104 of the Coolest Geeks Alive for the weekend episode. I think he and I are going to be talking about the Ghost Machine comics. We're going to try to read through them, and the new X-Men 97 animated series, which was really great. He hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. There's only one episode left on Wednesday. I'm excited to watch it, and we're going to talk about that and a couple other things. We're going to eventually be having some guests on that show, but we're just starting to like get our shit together and get our schedule going. But that's cool, and you can join me on Friday, same time, 12/3, for the Everything They Don't Want You to Know. The first episode is like going to be an introduction to sort of my life story as like a mind trying to develop on planet Earth, trying to learn what it was I needed to learn to best go through this life here. Anyway, next Monday, for All Your Favorite Bands Suck, even though the Rise Against episode isn't out yet, it'll be out later, probably today or tomorrow. But next week, I am doing Akon. I quite like Akon. Lonely, I'm so lonely, I have nobody for my own. He's kind of like a hip-hop R&B artist, but really did some cool things to break on through, and has some great albums and some great music that I'm going to recommend to you. So I will see you on Friday and Sunday and Monday. And this is my life now. Just I go in like a little circle talking about all these great things. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Lyle and Angela and Colby and all that. And if you guys hang out for a second as I wrap up just like the show for the podcast, I will speak to you a little bit more. But anyway, I love you. And if you're just doing this podcast thing with me, thank you so much. 103 episodes. This is awesome. This is awesome. And I couldn't do it without you guys listening and being here. If you want to join us for the live streams, again, these are going to be every Wednesday at 3 noon LA time. Anyway, I love you guys so much. I will see you next time on another fucking awesome episode of The Coolest Geek Alive.
It's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on. It's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it. Say. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah. Part. Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. Coolest alive.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.